So it's not often in clinical skills that somebody gives me something that I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This is what a novel take on this. And I apologize if this is stealing from somewhere because like I didn't know if this is like something that other people have talked about. But it was such an interesting take on how to set up a relevant case presentation, right? Relevance or pertinence is something that's really hard for students to understand until they've done a lot of case presentations. But if you frame it from the perspective of like, here is the answer, how do you get to the answer, right? Then it becomes a lot clearer, like what are the things that are pertinent to a case presentation because they have to explain the previous step in reverse order, right? So let me give you a case, right? So we have a patient in the hospital who is on levofloxacin and is pending a CTA for rule out PE and is on inhalers, right? Why are we doing these three things, right? That's our management plan. Why are we doing these three things? We're doing these three things because we think that this patient has a community-acquired pneumonia. So that's why we have them on levofloxacin. We can't rule out a PE and we need to get a PE protocol done. So that's why we're doing the CTA. We think they might have undiagnosed COPD, which is why we are doing the inhalers, right? So that's our assessment now. Our assessment is probable community-acquired pneumonia, and our differential includes possible pulmonary embolism and possible undiagnosed COPD, right? Why do we think these three things exist, right? Well, we think that the person has a community-acquired pneumonia because they have a left lower lobe infiltrate on chest x-ray, right? We think that they have a PE based on their low oxygen saturation. We think that they have undiagnosed COPD because they have a barrel chest, right? Well, on the chest x-ray, what made us get a chest x-ray? We got a chest x-ray because our clinical examination also showed rhonchi and dullness to percussion in the left lower lobe, all right? So now I have physical findings, right? Physical findings show hypoxia of 92% on room air, and or 82%, let's say, and rhonchi in the left lower lobe. Subsequent chest x-ray revealed left lower lobe infiltrate, right? And let's also give them a fever because we have a suspicion of pneumonia, right? Like, so the fever would also be explained by that. Fever of 101.4, right? Right? Why did we do all of these chest examinations? We did these chest examinations because of the patient's complaints, right? So the complaint was that he's been having a productive cough and sputum that's purulent, as well as symptomatic fevers and chills, and dyspnea, right, which has been ongoing for a couple of weeks, right? He also, we suspected we need to consider the COPD because the patient has a 40-pack year history of smoking, right? Why did we ask him all of these questions about his cough? Because that's his chief complaint. His chief complaint is cough, right? So let's take this, all this information that we just accumulated, and then turn it around, right? Chief complaint of cough. Patient is a X-year-old gentleman who's presenting with complaint of cough, which has been ongoing for the past 2 weeks, purulent in nature, with associated fevers and chills symptomatically, and a 40-pack year smoking history. Clinical examination reveals a fever of 101.4, hypoxia of 82% on room air, and rhonchi in the left lower lobe on pulmonary examination. Other lung fields are clear to auscultation. There's dullness to percussion as well over the left lower lobe. Chest x-ray obtained shows infiltrate in the left lower lobe. Other areas are clear on chest x-ray. Based on this clinical examination, the most likely diagnosis is community-acquired pneumonia. Can't rule out undiagnosed COPD given the 40-pack year smoking history. Can't rule out pulmonary embolism without CTA given the fact that the patient has complaints consistent with possible CTA or possible pulmonary embolism. Right? It's a very interesting way to be like, if you take what you already are, if you what you take what you're doing right now, and you need to come up with an explanation for it, right? That really draws pertinence. The only real caveat to this entire plan is you actually have to know that what your end is correct, right? Like if you don't know that the end is correct, then you can't really explain your way to the beginning, right? But if you can, if you're like, I know what's going on, I just need to be able to explain it, then if you think about it from the end, then every step from the end builds towards it, right? And so that's just a great way to think of like, how can I make a case presentation more pertinent? Because the only things you're going to talk about are the things that are pertinent to what the previous step was.